welcome to Wide Angle this week. When intelligence officers write books, all of us clamor towards the bookstores hoping to get little nuggets of big intelligence stories, big security stories that may have brought down governments or propped up governments, as the case may be. Lessons from wars that may have been won or lost. So Vikram Sood's new book, The Unending Game, a former R&AW chief's insights into espionage, is no doubt flying off the bookshelves. In fact, if you've tried to order it off Amazon, we're quite sure that Amazon has told you they're out of stock already. We're being joined on the show by Mr. Sood, who led the R&AW in some extremely formative years, to talk about this new book. Mr. Sood, if you can tell us, this book, as I said, we pick it up to sort of look for nuggets and bits of information that may have been declassified or perhaps classified information that you might be willing to share with your readers. The book isn't really about all that. It's about the trade and the craft of espionage. You call it a craft, not a science. That's an interesting choice of phrase that you use. What prompted you to write this? Do you think our spies need a few lessons in the craft?
No, I thought that, it's about time that there are perceptions about Indian intelligence, and I thought we should put the whole thing in perspective, how we grew into what intelligence agencies are today, how the other part of the world was using intelligence. It is not just that intelligence by itself is a standalone commodity or an enterprise. It's a part of statecraft.
Right.
It's an essential part of statecraft, and it has to fit into that scheme. So I wanted to place it there.
You very clearly in the beginning, in fact in the prologue, you start with R&AW's agents and their hunt for information on Pakistan's nuclear program right from the 70s when A.Q. Khan was traveling all over Europe and the Middle East and shopping essentially with money from other countries in the Islamic world. Do you think today that Pakistan continues to remain the single biggest threat for India in terms of understanding spy networks and intelligence operations and how they operate on Indian soil? If they do, that's one question. And the second is, you make the comparison between the ISI and R&AW very early on as well, and how they have complete control over their regimes, their administrations, their bureaucracies. Do you feel that the R&AW and its agents were somehow hamstrung because we are a democracy?
I'll answer the second one first.
Okay.
The comparison. They work in a different ethos, we work in a different ethos.
Right, absolutely.
For them, ISI is a part of their, shall I say, the strategic clandestine core of the Pakistan army. Then they're working like a special operational group, fighting for jihad in two countries, shall we say, simultaneously. They're doing a two-front jihad in Afghanistan and in India. We are, I would describe as a classical intelligence agency, primarily devoting itself to collecting intelligence and running special ops only as an add-on.
When it's required.
When it's required, and well, it should be in readiness most of the time. So that is the essential difference between them. They are a strategic add-on to their systems. We are an intelligence add-on to the system. So we work differently. We have career intelligence agencies. They have chaps in and out from the army and go back. We have people coming in who stay on for years and years. Like I stayed for 30 years. A lot of us did. So there is continuity in the individual, in his experience, and what he gives back to the organization. I don't think they have that there. So in that sense, I would think they're less professional, but they're very good at their special ops, as you would know.
And the first part, is Pakistan still the single biggest challenge?
Pakistan, when we think of a threat, we think of an overall threat, a total threat. I don't think Pakistan is that kind of a threat to us. It's a nuisance. We have to deal with it. It'll give you problems in Kashmir or wherever else it can. But can it make India change its way of life? do we have to do something different? The Chinese are much more ambitious and much more capable, and they are our neighbors. So they are actually going to be something that we have to watch much more closely in the years ahead.
It's interesting that you mentioned China also as a country we need to be sort of watching our behind our backs for. Now, the thing is that we talk in this new age 21st century high-tech world, data collection and surveillance and things like that. The Chinese are also very good at technology and making sure that their technology infiltrates many markets across the world. Is that a challenge Indian intelligence is prepared for in terms of just the technological know-how? I know you say that spying or espionage is a craft, not a science, but is there room for it to become a science right now?
You know, as technology improves, and we don't know how much and by when it will, really shoot off. Artificial intelligence, for instance.
Yeah.
They say by 2025 it will be as good as human intelligence, or maybe overtake it. So how do you handle that situation? How is an intelligence organization going to handle? There are no answers. I don't have the answers. I only have worries that supposing that artificial intelligence falls into the hand of a rogue element, or itself goes rogue, how do you handle it? As it is, the terrorist is usually a step or two ahead of you in the manner of using technology, because it may cost you $1 million plus, I do not know exact figure, to make a drone, but you can make an anti-drone tracking device for less than $100. So there is no comparison between how this asymmetric war is going to be fought. And when the intelligence gets you data in billions of messages a day, how do you download, how do you sift, how do you segregate the useless material for the useful material? And then ultimately you will need a human being to assess that information, because you can't leave it to an algorithm to do it for you all the time. So these are the challenges of volume, speed, and the range that you have to face, and that your reaction has to be equally fast.
So looking for ways to have that sort of nimble reaction to the material coming in, one small part of your book you devote to the failures of intelligence, and you say very often, a good intelligence operation should be one that nobody ever hears about, because something has been averted, nobody's concerned about it. It's where the failures take place. You've talked about 9/11, you've talked about 26/11. You haven't, you've in passing mentioned IC 814 and things like that as well. But when these failures do take place, it is that human who may or may not have processed the data that came in that's ultimately held accountable, or is there any accountability when these failures happen?
Yeah, there are two kinds of accountability, and there are two kinds of failures. One is a failure to detect a terrorist attack. So you either had the information, didn't act on it, you didn't have it at all, or you had incorrect information.
Well, the former seems to be the case for both 9/11 and 26/11, that there was information.
There was information. Now, the intelligence agency merely in our system, we feed the information. We give it to the consumer. Now it's for the consumer to decide what he wants to do. In the normal human life of our existence, if I go to a store and I don't like a product, I say I don't want it. I can change it. But in the intelligence world, the information that is given to the consumer is as is. You cannot, the consumer can't turn around and say, I discard this, get me another one. There is no another one.
Right.
So when massive failures occur like 9/11 or Kargil or even IC 814, then it's a systemic failure. It's not an individual organization that is solely responsible for it.
But when these systemic failures take place, what is the accountability? Because there must be some accountability. At the end of the day, innocent lives have been lost, a country has been attacked. Civilians are dealing with the tensions between states and non-state actors. Where is the accountability?
Well,
is it just political? Is it just political accountability?
No, the Kargil Review Committee did say that the R&AW, there was intelligence failure. We had accepted that. Yes, there was a failure. Because we can't say that we knew everything, but we knew quite a bit. And if the consumers had acted upon it, then things might have been different. But we took it on our chin. Okay. That's this thing to do. What the political masters want to do with that finding is up to them. I'm not going to tell them to do A or B as an action. But when subsequently it was raked up again, that's why I wrote that, well, we had information too. And we did tell you something is unusual and different. So you can't do the same thing like you did the year before last, the year before that. And because things are changing, so you should have taken measures.
So when you talk about the consumer, and it's ultimately up to the consumer to decide what to do with that information, the consumer, we're assuming, is the government of the day, pretty much.
Yeah, it depends on whether you're feeding the Ministry of Defense or the External Affairs or the Army, whichever.
Yeah. You also talk about the need for prime ministers and governments to understand the value of intelligence and ensure that the organization isn't sort of left in the doldrums. You make that comment about how over a 7-year period or an 8-year period, intelligence chiefs, R&AW chiefs specifically, were changed multiple times.
Except, there were 9 years and 7 chiefs.
Right.
And one of them did 3 years.
And so you're saying that something like that is unadvisable because it leads to a failure of institutional memory, no continuity.
Failure of, styles. Every person has
every chief has a different
style of working, a different set of priorities. So you can't keep changing every year.
So what was your style of working and your priorities?
My theme was that I am there at the top, but I don't know everything. Therefore, I must have a team who then tells me, in their area of expertise, what is the best. And then the decision is mine, how to use that.
How do you think intelligence organizations, and especially Indian intelligence, can meet the challenges of vast amounts of information in the public domain? You mentioned social media as a treasure trove, actually, if a good analyst is going to sit and look at what's going on. The flip side of that is also when there is an intelligence failure, there is that kind of public hue and cry over it. You mentioned IC 814 in this context and the public pressure that led to the release of terrorists. The third part of this question is about assets, intelligence assets when they're captured, or in the case of Kulbhushan Jadhav, India is actually looking at Vienna Conventions and how they have been denied, things like that. So it's an asset we've claimed, in a sense, by having asked for this kind of access.
I think we've claimed it only as an Indian national.
But what do you say to people who say,
what
do you say to people who say, or in the case of Sarabjit Singh or the many who sit on Jantar Mantar and Dharna, that we have been used by Indian intelligence, we've been sent across, we go and put our lives at risk, and there is no one to say that this is what we're doing. No one will fight for us if we get caught. It's a situation.
It is an unfortunate situation across the world, and there are compensations, there are arrangements made for them, for their wives and families, but perhaps they don't feel it's adequate.
So is there a way forward? I
don't know. I suppose just open the purse a bit more.
You also make that point about don't be stingy, but don't be too generous.
Yeah.
There's a fine line, a balance. So
there is it is always a very difficult decision actually, whether I'm overpaying or I'm being too generous with him, not just monetarily, any other way. With this fellow, is he worth it or not? It's like having peace talks with somebody, you know. Should I give in now? Should I press for more? So it's a decision you take. That's why it's an art, it's a craft, it's not a science. That 2 + 2 should necessarily make 4, sometimes it doesn't in our world. So you have to decide कि इसको दे सकते हैं कि नहीं.
How do you deal with the amount of information in the public domain?
It's the amount of information in the public domain and to be in competition with the media is something we have to avoid, putting the two together, because we can't compete. The media will give a story and it's wrong and it's wrong, it's gone. Tomorrow is another day. I've rarely seen anyone apologize for the wrong information that they put out yesterday. But we can't afford that. So anybody to say that TV pe to aa gaya, aapko nahi malum. You know?
And yet, that's interestingly an example you cite in the case of 2611. You talk about news reports on CNN, IBN.
No, those were different reports. Yeah, those are the reports that were fed in live from the scene and picked up by the other side.
No, I'm talking about reports about how there was a plot that IBN had reported it in much before 2611 and nobody picked up on it.
Open source information is 90% of intelligence. Maybe even more. They're probably getting even more nowadays because there is so much available outside. So your secret information is the rest. That's what we have all this for. To get that little extra bit to complete the story.
So, in your 30 years of being in R&AW and retiring as the chief of India's external intelligence organization, can you tell us a little bit about the kind of bureaucracy within in terms of recruitments, in terms of just competition, healthy or otherwise, between the Intelligence Bureau and the R&AW? Because stories are legendary. But, you know, fill us in.
इसको राज ही रहने दो. Now there is, we recruit from the civil service.
But there is also an RAS that recruits.
Yes, but there are fewer and fewer people joining, I believe. And I think we have to now go out into the open market much more. Because however good your recruit from the civil service may be, there are a lot of drawbacks there. He is not the kind of material you would need to do the modern technology oriented intelligence collection. The mindset is different. You don't understand the intricacies of all that. Then if a civil servant joins you at the age of 25, 30, he's conceivably in our system already married with a kid or two. So he's becoming more and more risk averse, which is not what you want. You want a fellow who will step out, calculate his risks and take them. So, you know, and then he joins there, you spend 5, 7, 8 years to groom him, and then he's nearing his 2/3 way his career, finished. So you don't get maximum. You have to get them young, you get them from the universities, you've got to get them from the open market.
Are you going to, you're looking at wanting to recruit more single people early on so that they're less risk averse. But do you think that now that you're talking about going out to the open market and things like that, you would consider A, more women, B, more Muslims within the intelligence network?
Why not?
Because that's been a thing. I mean, there haven't been Muslim officers recruited.
You know, patriotism is not the sole right of anyone particular. Bureaucrat, policeman, Hindu, Muslim, nothing. And it's fine. I think we should recruit as many as from wherever you can. What you need is his mental capabilities and his skills. Whoever gives you the best, take him.
So if patriotism isn't the sole domain of any one community or one individual, why is it that we haven't seen more Muslim intelligence officers?
It takes time to get these things organized.
But there is a will.
There is a will, definitely. There were attempts made in the past also.
And what is your message to the political classes when it comes to dealing with intelligence organizations, IB or R&AW?
Message, मैं क्या दूंगा इनको? I have no message.
Apart from being strong leaders, yeah.
I think it's there in my last line, last few lines, that you have to have an intelligence that you deserve.
You get the governments you deserve as well. You said that there as well.
And then the government gets the intelligence it deserves.
Right.
So it's up to you to decide which one you want.
So we're kind of trying to figure out what we deserve and what we've got right now, I suppose, right? All right, Vikram Sood, thank you so much. As expected, you didn't give away too much in the book, and you haven't given away too much while we speak. Also, we'll wait for the cameras to go off before we ask you some more questions. Thanks very much for speaking to Wide Angle. Thanks a lot.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.